everyone. How are you? Happy Tuesday. Here we are for a live class. You guys have been asking for more human design stuff. I know it's so intriguing and I love sharing about it. So we got a good match here. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about decision making based on your human design. So there are a few things that go into this now. I just want to start off by prefacing this by, 75% of really experimenting with human design and living your design and experimenting with that is really about following your type, strategy, and authority. So having this understanding is foundational and it really gives you so much to work with in a lot of ways that, yes, human design can be overwhelming. Yes, it can be complex and nuanced. And if you get this sort of foundational piece, you're going to be in really great shape to start making aligned decisions and movements and having really incredible things happen in your life based purely on knowing type, strategy, and authority. So if you've never run your chart, if you're brand new or you're getting familiar and you need to run your chart, I suggest going to mybodygraph.com if you're brand new to human design. This is not what practitioners may be using, but it's a really nice interactive sort of self-explanatory system to use. So you can grab your chart, put in your birth information. You will need to know your birth time. If you don't know your birth time, you can sort of play around with different times. Maybe just use noon as an example. This is most likely going to give you an accurate type, strategy, and authority. That may change throughout the day, so it's ideal to have your time. But play with it and see if it changes at different times throughout the day. I like to do sort of like a 1 a.m., 6 a.m., 12 p.m., 6 p.m. Like go throughout the day and see if it changes type, strategy, and authority. And if it doesn't and you don't know your exact birth time, that gives you something to work with that is pretty accurate. But go to mybodygraph.com to get your chart. If you are familiar with your type, strategy, and authority, you don't need your chart here with you today because we're going to be focusing mostly on authority because that's how we really understand how to make aligned decisions in our life and in our businesses. So when it comes to authority, we always lean on type and strategy first. So as you guys may recall, there are 5 types. If you need a recap of the general types and what it means to be your specific type and what it means to follow your strategy, I definitely recommend that you check out the video that I have linked here that I created that sort of goes through all of the different types and their strategies so that you can have a better, more comprehensive understanding. Your type determines your strategy, and we follow strategy before we follow authority. So as just a very quick recap, if you're a manifestor, your strategy is to inform people along the way because you are the only ones that are allowed to initiate things, so we inform people. If you're a generator, we are in response. Your job, your strategy is to wait to respond to life, to a stimulus, to something external, something internal that lights you up. You want to be in response to life first. If you're a manifesting generator, you have a little bit of that initiator energy. You cannot initiate first though. You want to be in response first, then initiate. Respond, then initiate. If you're a projector, you're going to wait for an invitation. So we need some sort of invitation in order to take action. So your strategy is to wait for that invitation. In the meantime, I know that's a really hard thing to wrap your mind around, projectors. I'm a projector, so I totally get that. In the meantime, you're designed to rest and have fun, just so you know, do things that you love, and the invitations will come. And if you're a reflector, you also wait, but we're waiting a lunar cycle. And I know that that can feel really overwhelming to hear, but I just want you to know that a lunar cycle, 28 to 30 days, the bigger the decision, the more important it is to wait a lunar cycle. But I think the overall takeaway in this sort of on-demand world that we live in is just to give yourself more time to feel in where we are in the lunar cycle. Are we in a new moon and initiating things? Are we in a full moon? Are we letting go of things? So what's the energy? Is there an eclipse going on? So really start to track the moon cycles if you're a reflector, and that will help you make decisions, just knowing that spontaneous decisions may not serve you. Okay, so we're really plugged into the moon for my reflectors. All right, so I want to go through the authorities. So once again, we're always following our strategy first and then your authority when it comes to decision making. Now, I'm going to talk about how the authority works in general, but I just want to give you some context as to why this is important. So oftentimes when we're making decisions, in particular, and this is about growing your business here, right? So in particular around your business, it feels like we can get really wrapped up in great marketing. You can get wrapped up in fear, a sense of lack. You can get really frustrated or angry or bitter about the way, or disappointed about the way your business is going. And so we start to make decisions from a reactionary place, and that isn't really going to serve you. That's why I think it's so important to understand if you're considering implementing a new strategy in your business, or taking a new course, or hiring a new coach or a consultant to come in and help you in your business. It's really important that you're tapped into your aligned decision-making process so that you can make really aligned, energetically happy decisions, right? We want to be in flow when we're making decisions rather than coming from a reactionary place. And I have a soft spot for this because I have been in that place so often, in the place of bitterness as a projector, frustrated with my business. Why isn't this working? What am I missing? What do I need to learn? And I have spent a lot of money and a lot of time taking programs and working with people that weren't necessarily aligned, and I didn't know until I got into it. And it's important that we're making those aligned decisions. It's going to save you money. It's going to save you time. And it's going to help you sort of just grow exponentially as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, when we're making those aligned decisions. Okay. So that's the context why it's so important to begin to understand the way that your energy works and to start operating from that place. And this is why I'm so passionate about human design to begin with, because I've never had a tool that has helped me move into alignment so quickly and with as little trial and error as possible. Now, that's not always avoidable, trial and error. So I'm not saying that there is no trial and error to be had, and some of you are experiential learners, and that's just how it's going to be for you. But it's really helped expedite the process, and I want that for you. I want you to know that the way that you are is how you're designed, and it's beautiful and lovely, and let's move towards the highest expression of our human design, right? So I could go on and on, but this is why I love human design so much, and I find it to be so powerful, even in these really foundational pieces of just understanding type, strategy, and authority. Okay. So when it comes to authority, our authority tells us how we're making decisions. And again, the bigger the decision, the more life is impacted by this decision, the more important it is to follow your type, strategy, and authority. I understand that on a day-to-day, you need to make decisions. If you're a projector, you can't wait for an invitation to go to the grocery store. You can't just sit around and wait a lunar cycle to respond to an email. I understand this. So I just know that it's not always going to be so over or such a long process if you're designed to wait, right? That's everyone except the manifester. And also for manifestors, really stepping into your authority as you are sort of moving through life and translating this sort of divine inspiration into action. And that we really want to be mindful of what your authority is, because that might inform how quickly you're moving. Okay, so there are two types of authority. There are inner and there are outer. Okay, so if you have an inner authority, so this is going to be my sacral, emotional, splenic, ego manifested, ego projected, and self-projected projectors. Okay, so if one of those is your authority, you're an inner authority. If you are a mental projector, that's me, hey, and or you're a reflector, you're going to have an outer authority. So what's the difference? With an inner authority, it's a body knowing. Okay, there is this inner visceral experience with your authority that's speaking to you from a body place, a somatic place versus a mental place. There's going to be a knowing in your body that your mind isn't going to be processing quite yet. Oftentimes it happens quickly. That's for my splenic and my sacral My ego and self-projected and emotional authorities, you might need a little bit more time, and we'll talk about those specifically. Regardless of which type you are, if you have an inner authority, this is going to come from your body. It's going to be a visceral somatic experience, and that's how you're going to know if something is right for you or not. And you can probably, just hearing this, think back to times where you've made decisions where it was just a gut knowing, or it was just felt right somehow in your body. You didn't really know how to explain it. There wasn't necessarily a thought process associated with it, though there might have been for my ego manifestors and projectors. However, it is just this knowing, and so I'm sure you can recognize those times, right? If you have an outer authority, this is not necessarily about a feeling in your body. It comes more as sort of there's an external influence, okay? So the two types are the mental projectors and reflectors, and they're going to be very different, and again, we'll break those down. But it's more about really being able to provide your perspective. So remember, reflectors, you're literally a mirror for humanity. So providing that perspective to people that may come in more, and may feel more channeled, right? Some from outside of you versus coming from inside or coming from your body. And for mental projectors, it's really the hearing yourself speak that is where you're going to get that perspective is going to come out, and that's actually going to offer quite a lot to humanity. So let's just back up because, and I have my cheat sheet here, about half of the population, 47% or so of you, are emotional authority, okay? And so emotional authority operates a little bit differently, but it's the most common type, all right? So emotional authority, I want you to know you were not designed to make spontaneous decisions. Again, if you need to run out to the grocery store, great, run out to the grocery store. You don't have to wait for your emotional wave. The bigger the decision, the more important it is to wait. But what this is it comes from having a defined emotional solar plexus. And this allows you to ride your emotional wave. So it's going to come in like a wave. It could be really big waves. Again, your chart, there's nuances that are going to affect this. It could be really small waves. It could be a big build and then, an explosion and then you're over it. So however you feel your emotions, you're going to need to ride that out. And that could take a little bit of time. For some of you, that's going to be, you want to sleep on it. For some of you, you're going to need a week. Again, the bigger decision, the more you want to feel into your emotions. What you're looking for in decision-making process is a consistency for a yes or a no. If there's wild fluctuations, like you're like, I want to, if you are going to a party, for example, you're invited to a party and you're not totally sure and your gut reaction is, like right out the bat, you're like, oh yeah, I'll be at your party. And then later you're like, you're kind of beating yourself up. Why did I say that I was going to do that? I don't want to go to that party. And then later you're feeling guilty. I never go to the parties. So maybe I should go. And you're riding this wave of feelings. That's how you know you're going through your wave. So excuse me, what you want to look for is, what is that consistent bottom line? Is there this undercurrent of, I don't really want to go, but I said yes, and now I'm having all these emotions about it? Or is this like, yeah, I want to go, but these other feelings are coming through? You're looking for that consistency in where you land at the end of your emotional wave. Okay, that's what you're looking for. The second most common type are sacral authority. This is only going to be for sacral beings, which are my generators and manifesting generators. So the sacral authority gives you this gut instinct, okay? So the sacral center is down in sort of this gut area. You're gonna have a hit that feels like a yes or a no. And for generator types, it's an uh-huh or uh-uh in particular. So that's what you're looking for. Yes, no questions are going to help you determine whether your sacral is saying yes or no. That's really the language that it speaks in. So for some people, yes, no, yeah, no, that's going to feel more comfortable. Once you develop this, an uh-huh and an is going to be, it's going to allow you to tap into that sacral center a little bit easier. So what you're looking for is, what is that gut reaction? This is very in the moment, okay? So that it's you can make spontaneous decisions. You can know in the moment if something is right for you or not. And what I've heard, because I don't have this, right? So what I've heard, what I've been told, what I have understood through my clients who are sacral beings, who have a sacral authority is, it's a hell yes or it's a no. Okay. And no can mean not yet, not now, or just a no. But if it's not really clearly a yes, we can set it aside. Okay. So again, you are designed to make decisions in the moment. I do have clients who struggle with this, with the overthinking. This is where the mind comes in. Human design, the philosophy teaches us and reminds us that the mind is really not a place to make decisions, especially for those of you who are inner authority. Your body has a knowing and we can trust that. So for the sacral authority, you're going to want to tap in and get an or an a clear yes or a no. And if it's waffling, it's not a yes. And we can trust that. Your body knows. Okay. So similar to that is going to be a splenic projector. Those are about 11%. So sacral, 35-ish%, about half of you. So 47+% are emotional. 35% are going to be sacral. 11% of you are going to have a splenic authority. Now, splenic center is the center where we have sort of like an intuitive knowing. So a lot of intuition lives here, as well as fears. And this is more around survival, right? So intuitive knowing around what's safe and what's not safe. Okay, so if you have a splenic, this is an intuitive knowing. And again, I don't have this, and it's hard for us to know what that experience is. So we really have to rely on other people to sort of articulate that. So what I've heard from clients is it can come as sort of this quiet, it's very in the moment. First of all, it's very in the moment. So again, if you have splenic authority, you can make snap decisions that can work really well for you. And we don't want to get into a place of overthinking. It is so in the moment, and it's going to come again through a body knowing. All right. So your body is going to inform you, and it might come as a quiet voice. So everyone's going to experience this a little bit different depending on your primary intuitive abilities. It could come as a smell. So we're thinking like the clairs here, right? So it could come as a smell, it could come as a snap vision, it could come as a little voice, but typically it comes quietly in the moment and you have to really be paying attention to it. Or it may come just quiet as that little tap on your shoulder. And you may get that a few times. I've heard people say once they hear that intuitive voice or they have that intuitive knowing, and it hits them, 2, 3, 4 times, then they know, hey, it's time to listen up. Okay. And that's how they know that something is right for them. So it's a muscle that needs to be built. It's something that you really need to be aware of. And once you are aware of it, and once you begin living this and really tapping into your splenic intuitive knowing, you're going to feel it in your body. And again, it could be sensory. It could be just a knowing. It could be a visual that you get. It could be a voice. However that comes through for you, it will likely be quiet, but the more you listen to it, oh man, the more you're going to open up opportunities for yourself. Okay. So now we have, so we're talking about the inner authority. Okay. So we've talked about sacral, emotional, and splenic, and I'm going to talk about what's considered some minor. So these are much more rare. This is about 4% of the population, and they're divided between ego or self. Okay, and the ego can be for manifestors or projectors, so these are non-sacral beings, and the self projected is for projectors only. Okay, so the minor as a whole is really concerned with, especially around the ego, is really concerned with what is best for you. Okay, so this is again going to be an inner knowing. This comes from the heart or the ego center. So the way that you experience this is going to be visceral, and you may feel that in the heart center. What we're really looking for is an opportunity to ask yourself some questions. And again, it can happen relatively quickly. You don't need a lot of time to process this or to overthink about what you're looking to do. For my ego manifested and ego projected projectors is to really start to lean into what would be the best, most selfish thing for me to do. Okay. And it's not bad to be selfish. It's truly that when you're showing up in a way that is serving you first and foremost. It's actually in your design to serve the greater good when you're doing what's best for you. Okay, so asking yourself these questions and getting into this sort of what would be the best thing that I could do is a really beautiful way to connect with that ego, heart center, and to tap into your inner knowing and make decisions from that place. And projectors who are self-projected, we're looking to ask ourselves similar types of questions. Where do I want to go with this? What do I want to do? Is this correct for me? And we're listening for what comes up from the heart space. Okay, so for those of you that, again, they're considered minor, this is a very small percentage of you. We're looking to then get into a little bit of self-inquiry. What is best for me? What do is this the right, correct path for me? Is this a yes? Is this a no? What am I feeling about this? It's going to really help you to feel in or elicit that body response that you're looking for. Okay. I hope this is making sense. Let me know in the comments if this is making sense for you, because we've covered almost all of the types. Now we're going to switch to outer authority. Okay, so the outer authority are my reflectors and my mental projectors, my fellow mental projectors. It's a very strange thing. So this is about 3% of the population split between the two. So it is more rare. Mental projectors are also, sometimes you'll see that as no inner authority or environmental. Okay, so if it says mental, no inner authority or environmental, then you are a mental projector. What that means is that your environment is actually helping you to express your specific perspective. Okay, so outside influences are at play here. So we need to be really aware that when people say, oh, well, what does your gut tell you? If you're a mental projector, it might not be anything, right? Because we're not necessarily experiencing the world in that visceral way. Now, you might have feelings, and again, your chart is going to have all these nuances that can influence that, so you can still tap into your sacral gut reaction. You can still tap into your intuition and your heart and your emotional solar plexus for sure. The decisions that we make for mental projectors in particular is to really have a sounding board, a place that is completely neutral, a person that is completely neutral, that's just going to allow you to hear yourself talk through something. And fellow mental projectors, you may have talked yourself into like a spiral. I know when I was younger, I used to just get tired of myself talking about something, because you will hear the correct decision for you through that. And if you keep going over it and over and chewing on it, it will get exhausting to you. You're just going to be leaking energy. So just know that once you hear yourself, you'll start to feel what that's like. The environment is tremendously important for both reflectors and mental projectors. So your environment can be a sounding board as well. This is something that I do all the time. It doesn't have to be me hearing myself, but just getting into nature and allowing that to reflect back to me. The inspiration, what comes through, is often the correct decision for me, or often puts me into an alignment to bring in the invitations that I'm looking for. So again, we're waiting for invitations first, and then we are using our authority. Okay, so reflectors, this is very similar. The lunar cycles are a big part of your environment. Nature as a whole is really important to you. So as you're making decisions, you're really wanting to feel into what that feels like for you and what's coming through for you through your environment, through external situations, and through the energy that you're picking up on outside of yourself. So this isn't an inner authority, this is an outer authority, where we're really seeing what's being reflected out, and then giving ourselves that time to make a decision. So again, if it's, an opportunity to move across country, you're probably going to want to wait a lunar cycle, unless you've been in the environment and it just feels right, and then you might know. Okay, so environment is so important, and giving yourself this space and time, for anyone who is, is sacral or splenic, you can make these snap decisions. You're going to know in the moment. Definitely for my emotional authority, for the mental projectors for reflectors, and to some extent, my ego manifestors and ego projectors and self projector. You're going to need a little bit more time. It doesn't take as long for those minor types, so the ego and the self authorities, but definitely mental projectors and reflectors, you need time to feel into the decision and to talk through it. So give yourself that space. I hope this has been helpful. If you have questions, definitely let me know. I want to encourage you, if you're curious about human design, if you're curious about understanding yourself better, making more aligned decisions, or growing your business through human design, I do encourage you to sign up for, register, and attend my webinar that I have going on. It's a master class, because I hate to call it a webinar, because it's just like literally down and dirty. We're going to be teaching you some really great things. This is specifically designed for service-based entrepreneurs who are soulful, who are spiritual to some capacity, and they want to incorporate that part of themselves into their business. So you don't have to necessarily be a spiritual entrepreneur in the sense that, you don't have to be doing that kind of work with others, but you want to bring that into the back end and build your business from that place. If that's a big, important value for you, then definitely the webinar is a great place for you to be. Come check it out. And I'm going to be folding human design into each of the 3 topics that we're talking about that are holding you back from making the money and the impact that you really want. Human design is a tool that I use consistently throughout my work, and you will learn so much in that masterclass, and then you'll get an introduction to my brand new program that I'll be launching on Saturday at the end of that class, so you can learn more about business alchemy is what it's called, and you can learn more about bringing human design into your toolkit for really understanding yourself and understanding how to craft a business that is in energetic alignment. So I put the registration link in the comments. Again, you can grab your chart there. If you're curious more about your type and strategy, definitely click the link to watch the video that I have made about type strategy and really understanding yourself from a really high level perspective in human design. Again, this is the bulk of the work, type, strategy, and authority. So we filter down from there, but we really need to have a solid understanding and experience what it's like to live in your type, strategy, and authority before we go into more of the nuanced pieces. And then if you're curious about going deeper, we do go deeper in business alchemy. So sign up for that masterclass so you can get all the information, or make sure you're on my email list, because I'll be announcing that very soon. So, all right, you guys, that was a long class for today. I hope it was helpful. If you have questions, put them in the comments. You can always DM me as well. I see them popping up now. So that's absolutely appropriate, and I'm happy to answer your questions. We will be back to regularly scheduled programming next week. I know I wasn't initially going to be here this week, but we had some schedule changes with the masterclass, so that all worked out. And I hope this was helpful. If you have specific questions about human design that you want me to cover in these classes, definitely let me know. So either comment or shoot me a DM and we'll get them answered. Okay, you guys, I'm sending all my love and gratitude. I'm so happy you were here with me today or catching this on replay. Let me know if you've caught this on replay, hashtag replay, or just say hi in the comments. I'd just love to know that you're here and any ahas that you're taking away from these videos. Okay, you guys, have a wonderful day. Bye for now.